because one person texted me and they said they couldn't make it, but that was like it. But yeah, thank you for like making this a priority, because in order for you to come here today, it means that you didn't do something else. So thank you very much. So as you know, today we are doing an apologetics workshop. And is that okay? I'll just leave that like that, it's fine. Yeah, so we're gonna learn how to defend the pro-life stance with logic and reason. Okay, so yes, all of you already know me. My name is Deirdre, president of the club, have been since last year. Siobhan is the vice president. She was very sick this morning, so she wasn't able to make it, unfortunately, but some of you already know her. And yeah, so I'm a third-year education student with a drama major, which also means that I was the first ever drama student to also be president of a pro-life club. Right? Socially conservative drama students, what? Okay, yeah, so I'm not going to talk too much about myself, but one thing you should, it's not crooked. One thing you should know about me is that I spent 4 months of my summer doing pro-life work with the organization, the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform, and that was actually my second internship. So I've dedicated a lot of my time to pro-life advocacy, and I've had my fair share of conversations of this sort. And besides this club, I also run Edmonton Against Abortion, which is newly coming up again after years of inactivity. One thing you guys should also know about me before continuing is that I am vegan. So I don't eat any animal products. I don't eat any cheese or eggs or milk. Okay, so you guys know like the really bad vegan stereotypes, and like people are always like mentioning that they're vegan and they're like pushing this onto everyone. It's like, it's really annoying. People hate vegans like this, and I'm actually vegan, so I'm just like, but yeah, people hate vegans like this, and I really don't like to tell people I am vegan because it like makes me feel like they might see me a certain way because of people like, you know, the bad stereotypical vegans. Yeah, so, and when it comes to standing for anything, we need to make sure that we're standing for it in a way that will be receptive to other people. So just for fun, we're gonna watch this video of a vegan protest. And so what they do is they go into this restaurant and this lady's like, do you have any dog meat here? And they're like, no. And like, she's trying to point out the fact that they don't eat dogs, which is like, why don't we eat every animal? And anyways, it's, yeah, so they do this whole thing, and then we'll talk about it afterwards, but yeah, just take note of how people react to her.
I'm just wondering, I don't see any dog meat here. That's the latest thing. I thought this was like a meat restaurant, yet I don't see any dog meat here. It's steak. The steak is made out of cows. And I see you've got chicken, which is obviously chicken. And I see you've got pigs here, but you don't have dogs here. So I'm wondering why you don't have dogs. Why is there no dog meat? That is I mean, you've got the other meat. I don't understand it. Are you ever going to have dog meat here? Why not? I want to know. Just one moment. We have a challenge for you today. We just asked the hostess if there was any dog meat here, and she said no, there wasn't. How could anyone kill a dog? We love animals. We all love animals. We love
mean, I know I love corn, watermelon, and hugs.
Yeah. That was a good point to pause it right there. You can see her face. But why was that so horrible? Like, just tell me why. Why was it so bad? Why was it such a bad display? Do you think people were receptive to their message? Why not?
Because they were being obnoxious and disrupting everyone's meal and preaching at everyone, and like instead of having a reasoned dialogue, they were just yelling off like emotionally charged talking points.
Yeah, they were being intrusive, they're interrupting other people's daily lives, and they're coming from a place of emotion. Anything else we missed?
Yeah, they don't have a good argument, no logical argument.
No logical arguments, it's
Yeah.
all emotional, yeah.
I think they were also trying to make the people they disagreed with look bad, right? Instead of just being straightforward with like, we're protesting this, or like standing outside and like handing out leaflets, and like, you know, first make, you know, the hostess uncomfortable, and then like, right, shout down to everyone having their like steak dinners to make them feel bad.
Yeah,
And so in trying to make everyone else like feel terrible or look terrible, they just kind of made themselves look really terrible in the process.
yeah, right, so they're making personal attacks, basically. They're calling these people like murderers or like hypocrites, and like, stop eating this, you're the reason why these animals can't live, and yeah, how would that make them feel? Not like they want to be vegan. And other people who like even see protests like this, like, I wouldn't want to be vegan if that's what that means to be vegan. I wouldn't want to identify with that group of people. Okay, we're gonna move on. We're gonna watch a good example. Because in my opinion, this was, the next one, in my opinion, is a good example of someone like logically defending like the vegan position, I guess. So yeah, we'll talk about the next one and then we'll compare the two. I should explain the context of this. So this guy, this is actually kind of common in the UK. They have monitors or like screens up of like animal slaughterhouses, and then like they talk to people about it. And this guy that comes up to him is a dairy farmer. So I'm gonna. Why don't you do this?
Are you a dairy farmer, are you?
Oh.
Not because we want you out of a job, though. No, we want you to teach. You come down the southwest. We're down near the Apostles down there, near the south of Florida. Yeah, I've been down there. Right? Yeah. And you look at the communities down there, that whole southwest community. Built on farming? Is riding on the cow's back, and then you are trying to destroy it. Yeah, because the cow is a victim in this. Yeah, because we're looking, yeah, they are. Well, okay, why? You go down there, and you tell me if you can see a bad looking cow. Well, you go, I do. I've got cows are in perfect mint condition. When they go into the slaughterhouse, they come out chopped up into pieces. They do. They are victims for us to eat. Exactly. Yeah. But where's the cow's choice in this? We don't live in a perfect world, mate. Yeah, we do. No, we don't. We can. We can say that any form of animal abuse. We don't live in a perfect world, so they can abuse animals for money. We're not abusing animals. When they go into that slaughterhouse, they are being stabbed to death. Shot in the head and stabbed to death. That's abuse. You're using them for your own benefit. That's abuse. You're using them against their will. That's abuse. It's called big fuck.
Okay, so that's enough of that. How do you think he did in defending his point of view, the vegan guy?
He was more respectful about it.
Yeah, at the very beginning, he says, like, it's not because we want you out of the job, right? He's saying that up front as well.
He was more coherent than, I guess, eloquent.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and like, this is a one-on-one conversation, not like a screaming, like, at random people protest, too. So that's another difference. Anything else? Yeah.
I think he's trying to, instead of like making kind of emotional arguments, you're trying to paint some like elaborate picture of, you know, a chicken who likes watermelon and corn. He's like focusing on kind of the central issue, or at least what he perceives as the central issue is like, you can't just kill an animal for your own benefit.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was getting back to the point when it went off topic. Yeah. Do you think the other guy was being receptive to his message? No?
More than the other.
Yeah, I think he was actually listening to him, although he might not agree with him. He was actually listening. So, I mean, like, I'm not saying that this guy's gonna turn vegan the next day, but at least he doesn't think that vegans are crazy. That happens a lot, like on campus as well. Like, we'll have long conversations with people. They won't be pro-life by the end of it, but they will know that we don't hate them for being pro-choice. Yeah. What was next? Yeah, so the reason why we're watching like these videos as opposed to like pro-life debates is because whatever we're talking about, we need to remember that we have to do that in a respectful way and in a way that represents our cause properly. So things we have to keep in mind is that we need to be knowledgeable, we need to be wise in the words that we say and how they affect other people, and we also need to be respectful and compassionate towards the other people that we're speaking with. And we are representatives of the pro-life movement the moment we speak to someone on the other side. Sometimes people have never spoken to anyone who's pro-life before. This actually happened to Siobhan. She was telling me yesterday that she met up with a classmate, and a classmate said, "Oh, really? I thought you were pro-choice. You just seem like a really logical person." So they were able to have that conversation, and that classmate of hers was able to say, "Oh, wow, like, you make sense. I'm not going to see pro-lifers as some crazy people anymore." So, one common thing about just conversations about this topic is that people say it's difficult. Would we agree with this? Mm-hmm. Yes. Why? What makes it a difficult topic?
Starting with the discussion of, potentially murdering a innocent human life.
Yeah. Why does it make people uncomfortable?
Because with the idea of murder, that's like immoral, right? Like,
Yeah.
it brings up those kind of questions, and no matter what, that carries emotional baggage.
Yeah. Emotional baggage.
Yeah, because it's like a controversial topic, particularly because, right, it's asking some, very uncomfortable questions about oftentimes people's like personal experiences. Like, it's often asking people to examine the decisions that either they or people close to them have made, and like sometimes draw uncomfortable conclusions about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because sometimes people,
I'd say it'd be people think that it's an infringement upon their freedoms.
Yeah, they believe that abortion is their own right. So like, if you take any of our fundamental rights, like the right to drive or something.
Not fundamental.
Let's say someone is just trying to take, it's not a fundamental, what's a fundamental right? Freedom to religion or something. If we try to take away those people's fundamental rights, that's like outrageous. And so to them, abortion is, you're right, like they see it as something that is fundamental, that everyone should have access to. So of course it feels like we're targeting them as persons. Yeah. And emotional as well. Some people think that we're talking to the person and we're saying that we stand against people who have abortions, but being pro-life means that we stand against abortions in themselves. Doesn't mean that we're hateful towards people who have abortions or even give them. And that being said, to anyone you talk to, you have no idea if they have had abortions or if they know someone who has had one before. So you always need to take that into account when you're having conversations about this topic. Yeah, I had a conversation at one of our I'm pro-life change my mind tables like a few weeks ago with this guy named Kevin. Kevin came up to us and said, "So is it true that pro-lifers are not just pro-birth?" And I thought this is a great opportunity to tell him a little bit about the three arms of the pro-life movement. So I did. I told him that there's the educational arm, the political arm, and the pastoral arm. Educational arm raises awareness, shows people the reality of what abortion is, that it ends the life of a human being. Political arm supports pro-life politicians to defend the rights of preborn humans, and pastoral arm is the one that helps women at their 11th hour when they are in a crisis pregnancy They support the woman before, during, and after their pregnancy. So yes, although our campus club is mostly educational for now in the activities that we do, we're just a small part of the greater pro-life movement that is working in so many different ways to help women so they don't have to turn to abortions. And he was very surprised to hear this, but he's also relieved. So. Yes, and I think most of you guys already know the projects that we're doing on campus. I'm just going to run through them really quick. Every Wednesday we have a discussion table from 11 to 1, and we just kind of sit down in the general seating area of CAB, and then sometimes people, well, the hope is to just get people to come and join, listen in, or say their own opinion. We had someone actually come by today who works at the university, and he was really interested. He's actually pro-life, but we're waiting for more pro-choicers to come because that's what makes the really good discussions happen. Every Wednesday except for next Wednesday. And we have the outreach tables. These are booked tables that we have approved events by the university of different kinds. This one was from early on in the year. We had some good conversions come out of that, where girls had come up to us, actually they were both friends, and they said that a woman should be able to abort her child if she doesn't want a child with a disability. And by the end of that, they had both came around and they said that, well, it's our right to protect the humanity of that child, even if they're not born yet. Doesn't mean that we treat them less because they have disabilities. So yeah, things like that happen every day on campus, and it's really awesome to see. One thing that we're doing next week is the flag display. We are still looking for people to pick up shifts throughout the day. So we need 5 people to set up. We pretty much have everyone there already. And then a few people to take down from 3 to 4. But for shifts, supervising shifts, we need at least 2 people all the time from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So please consider signing up for that if you haven't already. And also keep in mind, this is Pro-Life 101, so this is like the basics. And if you want to get better, which is like really easy to do, I would recommend coming to the discussion tables. That way you'll get to hear more nuanced conversations, and also like books, podcasts, like other things like that, and just practice. Like practice is what helps probably the most with having conversations with people. So the number one thing that you want to keep in mind when you're having any conversations of any kind is asking questions. So asking questions, make sure that that it's not a lecture. You're not lecturing someone. It's a conversation that goes back and forth. And by asking questions, you'll also be able to hear what the other person says. And sometimes people don't even know why they're pro-choice. They just are. And when you ask them the question and ask them to justify their stance, they realize that they don't have a good reason. Some questions also are good for just navigating the conversation effectively. So, like, what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean by you're pro-choice? We're all pro some choices, but what choice, like what is an abortion really? What are we talking about here? And then also you could try repeating what they just told you in your own words to make sure that you're understanding them. And also, how did you come to that conclusion, right? Oh, humanity doesn't happen until you're reached the point of viability? How did you come to that conclusion? And there's one big question that we want to hit in the conversation. This is the big goal of the conversation, is you want them to answer what are the preborn. Because we know what an abortion is, right? It's the direct intentional termination of a pregnancy. Wait, what's a pregnancy? Some people might say, well, it's just a fetus, it's a growing fetus. You could ask, what kind of fetus is it, right? Because if it's a human fetus, then that means that the youngest and most vulnerable of humans are being killed with our permission. And that shouldn't sit right with anyone. The pro-life position is as follows. It is wrong to kill innocent human beings. Abortion ends the life of a human inside the womb. Therefore, abortion is wrong. So this is the central idea that we need to enforce in our conversations, and we want them to answer, what are the preborn? Okay, which sounds like a super easy thing, right? Just like, yeah, human rights, we're defending human rights. However, when someone comes up to you and says, yeah, well, what about women who are sexually assaulted? What about women who cannot financially provide for these kids because children who grow up in broken homes live broken lives, and you're perpetuating a cycle of hardship because poverty begets poverty, and like all of this stuff, like, how do we respond to that? Well, does any of that have to do with what are the preborn? No, these are circumstances surrounding like the woman. So this is really off topic to go on about the different circumstances. Obviously the circumstances, we can agree, are very hard, and we should do everything we can to help women in those circumstances. But if we want to talk about abortion, we need to talk about what the preborn are. So we need to go from off topic to on topic. We're just gonna like look at a few scenarios here, so you tell me if it's on topic or off topic. If abortions are made illegal, women will still get them. On topic or off topic? Off topic. If you're not a human until you can feel pain. On topic, off topic.
That's on topic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on topic because now we're talking about when you become a human. Abortion is a personal choice. On topic or off topic?
Off topic.
Yes, off topic. They're off topic unless we're talking about what are the preborn. So, now we can determine that. That being said, most pro-choice arguments are rooted in circumstances. Different circumstances. What kind of circumstances do you think people can use to justify abortion? I said a few already.
Rape.
Yeah, sexual assault.
Disabilities.
Yes.
Finances?
Yeah, finances.
Incest.
Incest.
Health
Mhm.
complications.
Health complications.
That even results in death sometimes too with that. So like, you know, that the pregnancy could result in death. So
Yes.
people say
Yeah. Health of the mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any more?
Like teen pregnancies.
Yeah. Age of the mother, she's not ready. Or in any instance, like an unwanted child. Like some people just don't want to have kids. Some people just don't want to be pregnant. Those kind of things as well. So, circumstances, obviously, it is a lot to have a baby. Not saying that it's an easy thing to have to go through with a pregnancy. We need to address people's concerns first. Yeah. So to get on topic from there, we need to do three things. First thing is common ground. Well, yeah, so common ground, and then analogy in question. So common ground shows that we are addressing their concerns, that yes, I can see that. That could be a very difficult situation. We're not just writing off their concerns like they don't matter. And analogy, so the analogy can be any type of thing that brings us back to what the preborn are. A really good way of doing this is by trotting out the toddler, or introducing the infant. So basically, you take the circumstance that the pro-choicer is using and you put a toddler or an infant in that circumstance, and then you ask, is it okay to end their life after they're born? And then the question follows is usually something along the lines of, why can we end the life of the preborn child but not the born child for the same reason? So I will give you an example using young motherhood. So someone says that how can a young girl follow through with being a mother? So common ground, I can agree with you, that sounds like a very difficult situation. Analogy, however, let's say there was a girl who became pregnant in high school and she thought she would go through with it. She said, I can do this. Now, she gives birth and the child is now 1 year old, and she finds that it's very difficult and she can't make it through with her studies, and she finds it very hard to make ends meet. Can she now end the life of her 1 year old? And the person you're talking to is obviously going to say no, You could say, good, I didn't think you would have thought that. The reason why I said that is because I want to ask a question. And the question is, why is it okay to end the life of the preborn child, but not the born child for the same reason? Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna do like a few more examples. Poverty. So common ground, I agree with you, children are very expensive. And I wouldn't be able to imagine what it's like to have a child and not be able to financially provide for them. It must be really difficult. However, analogy, let's say that there was a woman who was financially well off and she became pregnant. She gave birth to this child, however, soon after giving birth, she lost her job. She ended up losing everything. She couldn't even pay rent, nonetheless, put food on the table for her and her child. Can she now end the life of her child who is a couple months old? No, right? You'd ask, why is it okay to end the life of the preborn child but not the born child for the same reason? Yeah? Does it sound pretty straightforward? Can we do one together? Can we do a few together? Okay, so I'm gonna give the situation of someone with a disability. A woman doesn't want to have a child with a disability. How can you build common ground?
Saying that disabilities, raising children with disabilities is a difficult thing, like no one denies that, right? So,
Yeah, takes more effort and it's different to be a parent that way. Okay, common ground? Anyone? Analogy?
I guess you would ask, like, if you have a disabled 10-year-old and it's tough, does that make, like, is it okay to end their life because it's a tough situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a 10-year-old who has a disability. Can we end their life because it's hard to take care of them? Maybe they have a lot of supports in school. Maybe it costs a lot of money. Maybe they have a wheelchair, right? And that's really hard to take care of them, right? So yeah, can we end their life then? And then they would say no. And then what would we say afterwards?
why is it okay to kill a child, the preborn child in the same situation, but not the child that's born afterwards?
Yeah, exactly. Is there another one? Okay, let's do another one together. So let's say a mother's career, that she doesn't want to give up her career to become a mom. Common ground?
Raising children is a large sacrifice.
Yeah, yeah. Analogy?
Like a mom already has a child and she decides she wants to go to school, or can she kill her child so that she can start school?
Yeah, yeah, right. Like, or someone gets like a promotion or something. Yeah, absolutely. They'd say no. And then what's the last question we would ask them?
What's the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, what's the difference? Cool. We're gonna do partners right now. So you turn to someone next to you, and one person is going to be a pro-lifer, one person is going to be a pro-choicer. The pro-choicer person is going to pick one of those situations or those circumstances, and the pro-choicer is going to follow through with common ground analogy question, okay? And then after a few minutes, I'll tell you guys to switch, and then you switch the circumstance and the person. Does that make sense? Okay, any questions? Okay, go.
Okay, I'll start off.
Okay, then you just pick which
So you mean, do you
one
want to
you
go
want.
person first?
Alright,
Sure, I'll do
here,
that.
I'll
Portrait
put
versus
this
portrait.
one.
So, I think that, I think women should be able to have
Kids
an
are- we can agree, like,
situation
poverty,
where
like, it
she's
reduces problems,
just
we
too young
need
to
to
be
do
a
more
mom,
as a
right?
society to help women who find
She
themselves.
was knocked up when she was, working, she was a part or something like that, plan this, whatever, and
But same
going
time
for
being
this,
pregnant,
life,
she has to
life,
get
child's
If
life,
we
and
ever say that,
so,
like, legitimately,
she
just
should
find
be
solve
able
for
to
class.
seek out the abortion for that case.
No, of course not, because we recognize we're a 2-year-old and she's just person, so if we didn't kill the born child to try to solve her mother's problems, why would we kill the preborn child for the same reason? So why would we get
No.
You can only kind of see the different parts where, right, I was
Okay,
like,
yeah, the common ground for this one.
Is there, you know, people who are interested in
right,
that?
I agree with that actually is a huge issue, as long as there are, right, because right, when they bring up stuff like coffee, I don't like coffee, I assume you don't like coffee either.
Yeah,
And so, agree with, yeah, no, I know,
Hey guys,
I know.
we'll switch now.
You should like,
So, switch
Sorry,
Okay, guys, we're gonna switch sides and switch circumstances.
Okay, so then yeah, no, we'll switch and so we have to approach it.
I don't know if I can do that.
It's okay, if you're having trouble, we can always like.
Common ground is very hard to think about.
Someone has to.
Yeah. Well, actually, so I did with common ground is I listen to the thing that the person is worried about, and I figure out what part of it I agree with. So, and right, with hard circumstances, what if the woman's poor? What if I agree it's bad when women are poor? What if the woman is abused? What if, right, like, there's probably something in that circumstance.
So I think we both agree is that when it comes
You
to
just disagree
poverty,
that abortion is
certainly
way
a hard situation,
And so common ground is just
when
acknowledging
we
like,
think
yeah,
that
that's a
we
real
should be
problem.
work
At the same
around
time,
to try
is
to
this
alleviate
really
from that, and also that
So,
raising a child in
yeah,
that
so
situation
now,
is certainly hard.
alright, so there's the other one, yeah.
The question
Okay,
that,
so I think we need to work on
the
is
fact that what if the situation,
not
woman,
has
has a born child already, successful, husband, maybe even has a good job or, business, then all of a sudden,
It depends on whether
he is the one who's providing all the money, everything is fine now, she really has a home for herself, she's very children to make ends meet, should she then have to kill her own child to, alleviate that suffering?
If a broke person.
Okay, thanks guys. Sounded like it was going quite well.
Should you kill that?
Did we get
Should you
stuck?
kill that?
Did everyone, it's pretty straightforward.
So I'm gonna say
Yeah.
the first one,
Okay. One thing that I forgot to bring up was the circumstance of sexual assault. You know, these examples.
She's saying, I think that,
So let's go back
girls
here.
having babies
Sexual
under
assault.
to raise them.
So it's very important to be deliberate in building common ground with sexual assault when people bring it up. Sometimes they're just using the marginal case to justify the minority. However, we should still treat it like with care, right? So common ground, of course. I agree with you, rape is a horrible, horrible crime. We should be punishing every rapist to the fullest extent of the law. Now, one way to do this is by going straight to the question, and that's in a country where we don't even give the death penalty to the guilty rapist, why should we give it to the innocent child? Or you can also trot out the toddler with that. You can give an analogy like if a child was born or conceived in rape, if they were born but they were conceived in rape, would we be able to punish her for the crimes of her father? Wouldn't make any sense. There's also a good analogy that Amber Lee uses sometimes with do you mind explaining, like the married couple?
For sexual assault, yeah. Okay, yeah, so, right, oftentimes it'll come up that people are like, well, right, you need abortion because of sexual assault. You can't expect a woman to be forced to be pregnant because she was raped. And so usually the way I respond is, like I agree that sexual assault is a huge tragedy, and women who've gone through that need all of the support and counseling, whatever else they need, to try and move on with their lives as best they can. At the same time, say a woman, right, she was in a relationship, she and her partner chose to have a child, but then a couple of years after the child was born, her partner sexually assaults her. And now every time she looks at that child, she's reminded of the assault. Would we ever say that a legitimate way to help that woman through her trauma would be to kill her 2-year-old child? Right? Of course not. Even if she can't be a parent right now, even if the child reminds her of her trauma, even if we need to make sure she has counseling, support, whatever she needs in order to find some healing, right? But we recognize that right, killing another person does not accomplish that. So if we wouldn't kill a born person in that circumstance, why would we kill a preborn person?
Hi, by the way, I don't think I've met you before.
I'm sorry?
I don't think I've met you before.
No, first time.
Yeah, okay, are you on the,
Graciela Morales.
okay, are you on the email list?
No, I found out about the workshop with the communication at the St. Joseph Chapel.
Oh, the bulletin.
Uh-huh.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, what was your name?
Graciela Morales.
Gracia? Okay, nice to meet you. Yeah, so we just did like some mock dialogue already. So we were practicing with like a few like common ground analogies and questions. You'll catch up because we'll have more time to practice as we go on. So we're gonna watch a video of Trent Horn. Trent Horn is a fabulous apologist. He actually is a Catholic apologist, but he's got this segment on his radio show where they invite pro-choicers to call in and say why they're pro-choice, and then from there they just have a conversation.
Yeah, actually, just kind of as a quick side note, like I don't know everyone's religious backgrounds in the room, but regardless of religious background, if you want to like listen to more pro-life apologetics to develop kind of a sense for how these conversations go, every few weeks on Catholic Answers Live, Trent Horn does a 2-hour show talking to pro-choice people about abortion. He uses all the same kind of arguments that Deirdre is talking about us here today. And so it's just a really good resource to kind of go through their archive and pick out the episodes on abortion with Trent Horn.
Yeah. So we're gonna watch a segment from one of those radio shows. So the reason why I'm gonna show it to you is because even though he has his own speaking style and his own like pace of speaking, he'll still hit all the same points that we just went over. So even though it might feel like it's scripted right now, once you have these tools under your belt, it'd be easy for you to just pull out these things naturally to say them and not feel like you're following someone else's words. Does that make sense? Yeah. And also, since I'm an education student, watching videos can be boring and unengaging. So while we watch the video, I want you guys to watch for the things he does right and knock on the table really hard when he does something right. And then I'm going to pause the video and then we'll talk about it. Cool. Yes, so what are we looking for? What if he does right? Yeah.
Things that he does right, and then not the when he does something right, I guess.
Yeah, but like what would be something right? Common ground. Yeah, and analogies and questions. Yeah, okay. Because he doesn't, I don't think he trots out the toddler in this one, but he does use an analogy. So gonna play this, and the beginning of it is someone else answers the phone call, and then she says her point, and then he starts to reply, but then Trent interrupts him, and then he goes on. So the first guy that talks is not Trent, just to keep that in mind. Okay, any questions? Are you heading out?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to get going.
It's all good. Thanks for coming.
Alrighty, and I'm sure I'll see you guys at future events.
Yeah.
So Caitlin in St. Louis, Missouri, why are you pro-choice?
Hello?
Hi Caitlin, are you there?
Yeah.
Welcome, thanks for calling. Why are you pro-choice?
Well, I guess I'm pro-choice. I just think that, women should have the choice. And I think also that even if we were to make abortion illegal, people are still going to get them. And I just want it to be safe for the woman.
Okay, well that part's true. Abortions are still obtained even if it's illegal, but you haven't really answered why you're pro-choice.
I think I've taken it from that. Caitlin, are you worried that if you're pro-choice because if we make abortion illegal, it becomes more dangerous for the woman choosing it?
Yes, that's what I'm worried about.
Okay. Alrighty, well, here's my position on...
You guys should have knocked on it already. It was too quiet, I didn't hear it. Okay, would you have knocked?
Yeah, I would knock on that one.
Okay, why?
Because he was establishing, well, two things. It's that not only is he establishing common ground, but he's also asking for clarification. Like, so this is the reason why you're against, this, rather than just throwing in a straw man and saying, oh, you have this great idea. It's just like, no, he's repeating it back to her saying, so this right here is the very reason why you're against it, and she agrees. And so they're like, okay, now they know what to work off of.
Yeah, exactly. The very first thing that comes out of his mouth is a question, because he wants to clarify where her concern is coming from. Okay. You guys better knock next time.
We make abortion illegal, it becomes more dangerous for the woman choosing it.
Yeah, that's all I'm worried about.
Okay. Alrighty, well, here's my position on that. I agree with you. I agree that abortion should be safe. In fact, I would be okay.
Okay. You guys need Okay, what happened?
There is a common ground.
Yeah, right on. So he said, I agree with you that, yeah. And he's not agreeing with her stance, he's agreeing with her concern, so.
Abortion. Totally fine with it if it were as safe for the child as it is for the mother. Do you see what I mean by that?
I do.
What do I mean by that?
I think you need.
Okay. Okay, you were first? Yes. Sarah? It's because I looked. Okay. He actually did two things there.
Asked a question.
Yeah. Before he asked the question, okay, well, yeah, he asked the question, he said, yeah, what do I mean by that? Right? So trying to make sure that she knows what he's talking about. And right before that, he said, I would be okay with abortion if it was as safe for the mother as it was for the child. That's like a really subtle way of trotting out the analogy. Yeah, that's a very subtle analogy. Yeah, absolutely. I actually had a conversation at one of these other campus tables, and this lady's, the student was like, do you eat eggs? I'm like, no, there's a difference between eggs and zygotes anyways. And she's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, yeah, what's the difference? And she didn't know. So, but little questions like that make a difference.
But I mean, the child's the one that's not even able to live any longer, so they don't get the choice.
That's inherently the problem. You're right. If abortion didn't involve another human being's life, then it'd be obvious we should keep it legal so it's safer. So, for example, if tonsil.
Oh wait, I missed it.
I'm not, because he said you're right, which again is like, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just courteous in a conversation. Like, yes, I agree with you. We're on the same page. Yeah.
It means the removal of the tonsils becomes more dangerous if it's illegal. Well, we should just make that procedure legal. It's a good, if tonsils are damaged in some way, go ahead and surgically remove them. But for me, there's no safe way to do an abortion because half the people involved always end up getting killed. That was my friend Jason in Arizona. That's a good observation. So I guess, Caitlin, this is
that's as far as we're going to watch it. But yeah, I guess the last point that he made was just stating facts. Wasn't anything in particular that we focused on, but yeah, so you can see how we used these different techniques to go from off topic, which was people will still have illegal abortions, to on topic, which is the life of the child. So it's really cool to analyze conversations in this way. So now we know how to go from off topic to on topic. So for your guys' mock conversations we had just before this, did anyone get past question analogy, common ground analogy question? Or did you guys stop after you hit the question? You stopped? Okay. So what do you think a pro-choicer would say after you ask the question, why can we kill the preborn child before but not after? Or in the same situation, the question. What do you think they would say?
It's not actually live yet.
That's not actually live yet? Yeah.
That bioethicists have already evaluated it, and the government has already decided that that it's not life, and these people are far more educated than either of us are. So why would we even have
a legal case? Yeah, or a legal appeal. I guess then that comes to does legality equal morality? I'm looking for specific points though. Those are good points. But, so if, okay, well,
Women's
if.
rights, is that the one you're going for? No.
I think,
I don't know if this is the one, but it's kind of like they might bring up some sort of objection in that. So it's like you might say that, so for example, in the case of poverty, right? Like, saying, what this person, was in poverty. You'll say it's like, well, okay, in this situation that, well, if it's like, why do you do it to the preborn and not the ones that are already born?
Yeah.
They might bring in an objection where it's like, okay, well then, what are you doing about poverty or something like that? They might bring in more like, they just kind of muddy it by saying it's like, well, what do you pro-lifers, are doing to alleviate poverty? You're just telling you to be saddled with this.
yeah, actually we had someone do that the other day with us, saying like, you're not really pro-life if you're not helping children in Nigeria. She actually said that to us. But yeah, then it comes down to like, okay, so you're saying that I'm not allowed to advocate for some people's rights because I can't do everything to save everyone? Yeah. So what I was looking for though. But yeah, and if someone brings up like the science of when life begins, that's definitely like, well, if they say it's not alive yet, we could say, well, if something's growing, isn't it alive? Because obviously the fetus is growing. And abortion is successful when something dies. Even if it's a clump of cells, they're still alive. Anyways, what I was looking for was 4 traits that make the preborn different from the born, that people will sometimes point out in conversation. So it's size, level of development, environment that they're still inside the womb, and the degree of dependency. So these 4 things, usually people will bring them up in conversation, like what's the difference between the preborn and the born that makes it okay to kill one but not the other? Sometimes they'll bring up these, because these are the differences. Something interesting about these 4 points is that they also apply to people who are born. So these 4 things change throughout our entire lives. Not just from when we're inside the womb, but outside the womb and beyond. Yeah, and they also describe something about the preborn human. They don't tell us what the preborn are, so these things are still off topic. Right, so you can name a lot of things about someone that doesn't determine their worth. Like, there are things like about me, like my gender or my ethnicity, or someone's sexual orientation. Like, that doesn't determine their worth as a human being. That's just something about them. So same with these. This isn't, like, none of these points are a good reason as to why it's okay to end someone's life. So with these points, we can address the same way as before, which is common ground, analogy, question. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to give an example for environment really quickly because it is a little trickier sometimes to deal with. So common ground, obviously, I agree that the preborn are inside the womb and inside of someone else's body, of course. Now let's say I'm in a grocery store and I'm walking down the produce aisle and someone picks me up, puts me in their cart, and tries to purchase me at checkout. Are they allowed to do that? No. I might have been in the produce aisle, but I wasn't produce. So the question I would ask for this point would be, wouldn't you agree that location determines where we are, but not what we are? So what are the preborn? Back to that again. And there's a number of different analogies you can use as well. So let's do them together for size. Common ground for size. Anyone?
People come in all shapes and sizes.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people come in all shapes and sizes, and same with, the preborn human. They are much smaller than us. Like, I agree with you on that. What's an analogy that we can use for this?
I guess, okay, just, yeah, if we find people who are smaller than, average height, on a statistical level, are they any less human than those who are of, statistically average height?
Yeah,
So-
or like if size is what determines our worth of living, then does that mean that like the smaller we are, like shorter people are less human, and then the tallest people, as they get taller and taller, they are like the most human? No. So why do we treat the preborn human the same way? Yeah. And so you can always compare it to someone who's already born. Like you can already think level of development and degree of dependency. People vary. So we're gonna do another partner thing. So I want you guys to find a different partner this time. And the pro-choice person is going to say, either like the point of like, well, they're not really developed yet, or they're too dependent on the mother. Okay, and then we're going to use common ground analogy question again. Any questions? Do you guys feel like you're prepared to go into this one? Yeah? How do you feel? Maybe I'll go with you, and then wait, that's like an odd number.
Okay.
Maybe we can have a group of 3, but I'll go with you.
Okay.
And then I'll be the pro-choice person first. Okay, maybe we'll have one group of 3, but yeah, everyone find a different partner.
Alright, so who do you want to be first? The pro-choicer?
Wait,
I'll be the pro-choicer. Alright, so I guess you start off.
Okay, maybe
Let's be a group of 3. Well,
so why don't you guys watch your bars? Okay, so I'll be the pro-choice person.
Fetus isn't as developed as a baby. Okay, so yeah, I agree that a fetus isn't as developed as a baby is, along that. Babies are far more, honed in their developmency. But something to think about right here, first of all. When do women typically, women or even men, when do they typically hit puberty?
5 weeks. They are not 13.
13, yeah. So we would say that, 13, 15-year-olds are more developed than those that are 4 and 5-year-olds.
They're less.
So would we say then that those that are 4 and 5-year-olds, less human or not as human as those who are 13 or 15?
So
Yeah.
let's
So
a young
what would be
girl.
so how would we judge the same situation with a
She's very
with
underdeveloped.
a preborn child versus
And
a born
until
child?
she hits that point,
when it comes to
she's,
development.
she
Alright.
hasn't reached
So,
full maturity
dependency.
in
So,
her own body. So does that
Because
mean
the
that
child
that girl
is
who's less
dependent
developed
upon the mother,
is also less
she,
human?
they have the umbilical cord and all that stuff. The mother, has to, feed the child in the womb and all that, and so she's eating for 2. That shows that it's not really human because it's in her body and it has to be dependent upon her, and so it's not really human because humans are, independent. They're autonomous. They, can do things on their own.
Before,
Right?
yeah,
So.
before arms and legs, they would be pretty young. There are
the child
people who are born that don't have arms and legs. You might not have heard of him. There's this guy named Nick Wojcik, and he's a motivational speaker. He's got no
if the
limbs.
mother just leaves it somewhere. So how is that different then?
Yeah, do you think he's a human?
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't have arms and legs?
I
guess I was gonna say something to the counterpoint right there is the fact that but outside the womb, like it's an actual human being.
Yeah.
Inside
Does
the
that
womb,
make sense?
it still has the dependency where it's like without it, the child will die, but with a human child, or whatever, it still has its own sense of autonomy. Still, right? Like it still is a child that still is autonomous and does its own thing. It just might not be good at it, but it's still autonomous. Or
I
whatever,
said,
I guess.
Are there some born people that are not developed? Would you say? Like just
It is because
I
it's
mean,
not.
what kind of people wouldn't be as developed?
how many weeks on Mars we're talking about? Like, children can be born really premature. So they're less
Yes.
developed than
Maybe not.
a born child.
That might not be level of development.
Okay, I see your point there now.
Yeah, so
Because,
they can still be autonomous.
yeah, you don't grow out of a
Premature.
disability. So maybe let's
Yeah.
say.
Normally the argument that I usually give for that one, normally with the development is usually about degree of dependency. It's like, so what do we do with those that have heart conditions and they're dependent upon people, whatever? It's like, how do they develop it? Because that is actually a little bit more, because it's like, okay, like these people truly are like, just like a child, is dependent upon, with the umbilical cord and all that right there. It's like, well, just like a person, who needs an artificial heart or whatever, they're just as innate independent mode. And so do they now suddenly stop being human
Have not
right
reached
there?
full
So,
development.
yeah, I guess that makes sense.
The kids,
Sweet.
Yes.
because they sometimes cannot climb things or they cannot do.
Yeah, like they can't walk or something, right? So like
if
One thing I always like to
child
do is that sled
like
always
they-
works
they're
there.
only
The only
crawling,
case
they
that
can't
you
walk
might,
yet,
where they
they're
take the hard
less
case is
developed.
that, okay,
Are they
maybe
less
it is a
human
human
because
being
they're
that's
not
versus why
developed?
the woman still has a fundamental right to do
Yeah.
it because it's still her autonomy, right? It's like, you know, she, if it is
Common ground would just be
because
like,
it's
yeah,
like, well,
I
it's in my
agree,
body,
they're
I
less
don't
developed.
want it in my body, right? It's like, you know, it's mine,
You
know,
don't
or
even, you
her,
almost
so who
don't
cares,
even,
so.
yeah, it's just.
Sometimes people will like, no, it's her,
Yeah.
it's her body, her choice.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think there's no common ground for it.
Although those are like such, you know, really bad like places now, and that's actually happened on your case. Like there's some people who actually do use the excuse of like, well, it's a form of self-defense, right? Like, you know, oh, this baby is, you know, like causing damage to this person's body, right? So she should, you know,
Well, you
be
can
able to
agree
defend
with the
herself doing that. They've actually, like, I heard one person actually say
Yeah, I
that.
can see
I'm
how
also
the-
pro.
Yeah, I can
very
see
weird.
your
This
logic.
guy actually
but I
said
don't
that.
agree with that.
He made an argument saying, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't think all human beings are inherently valuable. Like Nazis aren't inherently valuable,
Yeah.
and then. He actually said that, you know, he thought that, you know, killing a child, you know, is no more than killing a dog. And I'm like, well, for a person who hates Nazis, that was a very Nazi thing to
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
I was like, holy crap.
Sometimes it takes like a little like thinking more about it, but there's
Yeah.
always
No, I don't care about
a double
life. It's like-
standard.
It's like they will straight up bite the bullets.
Yeah,
You
like they don't feel pain yet.
No, they
Yeah,
certainly
but
didn't.
there are some people who are born that can't feel pain because of neurological
One of my
disorders.
friends calls
Are they not human?
pre-burden,
Mhm.
pro-burden.
I'm
It's like you know people have babies that they don't want. I'm like,
refugee
no.
that
Oh,
they
dying.
think that
Oh,
they,
yeesh. No,
that
it's-
they
Yeah,
think
some people can't reason
they,
because it's like they
they-
do not see
they are
value,
born
inherent
is
value in
not
life.
Yeah, they bit the bullet. That's kind of what it is,
Yeah.
right? So.
we are just
It's like, well, it's like, because you don't even know what to say at that point. It's not even like saying that, you know, it's just more, it's like, okay,
Yeah, well,
whatever I
the
say
point
is not gonna really
like,
matter, but it's more
you
like,
need to get them to answer
I would almost say it's like, you know, maybe you shouldn't talk to somebody. At that point, it's like, 'cause I think another way to almost say it's like, this is almost like delusional. Like,
what
right?
kind of fetus
Like, if this was
or
actually
what
to be
kind
applied
of
out right
cells,
there,
right?
so.
So this is another thing, like, if two humans create offspring, what species is it gonna be? It's not gonna be some kind of cat or dog, it's going to be a human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and
Still
even
have,
science comes
I
at
don't know, there was one situation that
biological and genetic beginning
well, even
of
the
life
one that comes
is
up nowadays,
at
like
the
more
most
common ones, like I still remember the,
yeah.
Usually,
like there's the
we'll have like a science
burning,
textbook at our
like, you know,
campus
there's the burning
events
fertility
when
clinic,
we
whatever,
have
like, you know, like the fact, like I think
So
actually,
I've done that a
it's like, so
couple
there's
times,
those,
like,
there's
they'd
the
ask us,
violence,
like, when
like
does
the fact that you
human
have to
begin?
go
I
to
say,
this
well, do you
extent
mind
now,
if
like
I
this
reference
extent,
this
try and
nursing
make
textbook here?
some sort of,
And
you know,
so-
huge.
and there's, like,
article
very
or
first
whatever, it's
page,
like,
human
doesn't that
life
show
begins
that
at
it's
the
like,
moment
that's
of
also what makes the fertility
So
position not work, because they have to go
And-
through a whole bunch of loopholes, whereas the pro life position, it's like, it's relatively very simple. It's a very simple thing to say, right? It's not just, yeah. The only thing that I still have been wrestling with in the last while when I deal with this, it's not so much everyone, it's more like, because people say, well, what should happen to women when it's legal, should they be punished or not, or whatever?
It's not the foundation, yeah.
Which I still don't know, because like I actually,
Yeah.
I
Like,
read the
they're
Federalist, for
bad
example,
points.
and they actually had
They're
two
bad
articles
points for
where
you because
one of
they
them
give
said
moral basis.
women shouldn't
Yeah.
be prosecuted, you know, for this issue or whatever, and another article that said, no, women should be prosecuted, so it was both, it's like they had both those positions right there. The best way I can come to that on just the initial grounding is more like, okay, so someone says like, you know, it's just like, okay, well, you're inconsistent, you know, for holding the position of not prosecuting women, it's like, okay, maybe I am inconsistent. That doesn't prove that, you know, the unborn aren't human, it just means that I might be nearsighted on how justice is administered, right, so, yeah.
Especially because like,
Yeah,
more
more
time right now, just
Yeah.
right now, a lot of
And
people
some
are
people might agree with
not
you.
human, like it's
So I would
it was about the
like hesitating that, yeah.
They're like
Some
in-
people, like we
with
talk to
private
on campus
like,
might
have
agree.
intent, and I don't feel
Yeah.
Bringing up like
about abortion.
end of
Like,
big
they,
like
a
that.
lot of them don't
But
have
I
intent,
agree with
but
you.
they think
Yeah.
that it's doing wrong.
So I
Yeah, my
usually
position,
want child because in
so
newborn
far
child
has
can't
been
feed
more on
themselves.
the judicial side of it all, like the way people say, it's like, you know, so this goes beyond like, you know, do I think the woman
But
is
that
guilty
doesn't
or
give us a
not?
reason to.
It's ultimately irrelevant to my point, because I think it's like, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, maybe they are culpable or not. My position is more that you start with the question of, what was the position of this before Roe versus Wade, as an example, right? It's like, you know, so before Roe versus Wade, were women punished for abortion? And the answer, no, they actually weren't. And the reason actually was not because they thought they weren't guilty, was because they were used for state's evidence to go against the abortionists, right? Because they were the only witness to that, right? Without their testimony to it, the doctor and even her never was also afraid there would be no justice. So this was kind of that, it's kind of like the compromise that, you know, you do with like, you know, putting away the drug cartel, you know, people, right? It's like, you know, there's one person person that comes forward, you know, who's done all the crimes but 30 wants to give you information that'll actually put someone away, right? So that's more of my side issue, because I think it puts in the position of like, you know, not just, you know, the baby is, you know, born, but it also still keeps open where it's like, okay, so as far as the woman, is she culpable? Maybe she is. Maybe she straight up is river, right? Maybe she totally is like, you know, yeah, she has to be river, but the discussion here is that, you know, how do we get justice? Because if we, because that was the whole purpose of Roe versus Wade, or before that, was that the goal was not necessarily to punish those that do it, it was simply we want to stop abortion from happening, right? So the doctor, you know, being, you know, punished, and not only that, but he was the one who had everything to lose, because he would be the one that's prosecuted, who would pretty much, if a woman came to him saying, you know, hey, I want to get an abortion or something like that, it's like, no, you could totally testify against it, and she could say all she wants, oh no, I'm not, it's like, but it's your word against that, because if you do this, I have nothing to say against you on this, okay? I will get prosecuted for this, right? So that discourages the whole movement of abortions, right? So that's where I stand on this right now. But every now and then I do see the other side of like, yeah, it seems a little inconsistent or whatever, right? So it's like I still balance it every now and then. So yeah.
Oh, then she will like go to jail for it. Personally, I don't think so.
Yeah, all these
I
forms we are
can see like people
arguing,
like, well, they like,
we are seeking
I have something
the
to say,
foundation
they,
of
I don't think that they know.
and these all
Yeah.
So,
these.
no, it's true right there, you know, so that's the thing. The other thing I think they were talking about was more the fact that with the case of putting away women in prison or whatever, I think they gave the example of like even suicide, right? Suicide was illegal right before, but then when the person actually tried it, they didn't get put in jail for, you know, taking their own life. It was just, no, they're psychologically damaged. So, no, we went to we got into those topics and then we got into our own topics.
Okay,
So,
cool. Sounds good. I think some those three guys did a little too fast, but do you understand?
oh yeah.
Yeah, but if you
Derek's a pro, so. Okay, guys, we're gonna move on really quickly.
So it's like saying, okay, because I said so, that's it.
Yeah, so thank you. I think that went really well. Just find my spot. Yeah. Any hard parts about that? Anything that I need to clarify still? Okay. One thing that came up is like there's usually something about the preborn child that you can also find in born people, which I should have pointed out earlier. Raylene had a good example of like dialysis, like someone who's dependent on a dialysis machine. They are extremely dependent for their lives to survive, but that doesn't mean they're less human. Another thing someone might bring up, like heartbeat. Like your humanity begins when you have a heartbeat. Well, some people live off of pacemakers. Does that mean that they're not human? So things like that are also pain. Some people have neurological disorders that they can't feel pain. Yeah. So we're gonna do one more round of practice dialogue and then move on. But we're gonna start with the common ground analogy question. So I want you guys to find different partners again, and I'll go with Gracia.
Gracia.
Yes. And yeah, so pick any one of these circumstances and have at it. Okay? Cool? Okay, just pick a different partner you haven't gone with before.
Sure. Just a little more.
Okay. And it's the same practice.
Yeah, so, I'm pro-life.
All right, start it off.
So, give me a circumstance.
What if the mother
No, okay. Poverty.
Yeah, okay.
All right, certainly, I think that women being in poverty is, you know, a horrible situation, you know, it's actually in, and I do think that we should come alongside them as best we can to be able to provide support, whether it's, you know, whether it is, you know, helping to provide assistance in any way. I prefer to help them find ways where it's like, hey, like, here's a place where you can get a job or whatever, like this spot is open, or maybe just you're in a crisis situation, that there are crisis systems that can actually help with that. What I would then ask is that, let's say a woman, you know, so they have a child, you know, and they have a life, right? Like, you know, they're like, everything's good, you know, she has a home, she has a husband, you know, and her husband, you know, brings the money, he has a good job and all that, so they look pretty good. Then all of a sudden, her husband dies tragically,
and he was one providing all the money, so now she has to give up the house, she has to, give up the car, she has to give up all these things right here, and she may be able to get a job right now, but it's very much a struggle. It's not what she had before. Okay, it's definitely much more of a struggle, to put food on the table and all that. Would we say that in that situation she has the right to kill her child because her situation in life has become increasingly more difficult? So why would we say the same situation for a person who is not born versus those that are born? Why do we switch that? Which they're not saying, which they're usually, that's what they always look at. Like, they always go to that, well, because they're not human. It's like, so that's what the real question is. I think that's what she's one of it, is just the fact that no matter how we go back to it, it always goes back to what is the moral and then no circumstance impinges on what life is, and that's right. So, yeah. All right. I can start next then. So, it's okay. No, it's like, trust me, just takes practice, right? So, all right. So, I think that a woman who is a young mother and whatnot, or a person who's pregnant, who's very young and whatnot, she come up at a party or whatever, it wasn't her intent, it was a mistake that had happened. I don't think she should have to be forced to carry that child. I think she should get, she should be able to get an abortion so she doesn't have to, for this child to grow over. It would be very hard for her to raise it, especially if she doesn't, she was never, this is something she never asked for.
Before they're born, it's okay.
Before they're born, it's okay because she's not going to be attached.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with that.
Yes,
It's really hard.
What I'm saying,
It's not your
saying,
What role will you have a child? It could be that they come around. Keep forgetting they come around. Okay, it could be.
If I feel that,
Sometimes it feels like it's difficult to.
Yeah, there was a couple and they had a child.
So if I say
You can see.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay.
Just like the husband, I've had to die and suddenly she didn't intend her life to be this way, have to raise a child alone. She had, yeah, that is not her intention at all.
Yeah, so let's say that there are, there's a school that gets, there's a school shooting, and I don't know anyone at this school. It's really sad, and although I'm not going to cry about it, because I don't know anyone.
I've used that argument. I've used that argument before. There was one guy I was talking to, one of my friends, I don't know if he's full of but he's definitely like been like pro-choice, especially in a hard situation. Everyone's going to use what about the situation where, because like other situations with, so you can say, usually can be argued like, no matter what, she consented, because even if it was, oh, she made a mistake, she, got drunk one night, it's like, she still consented to the act. You can't say, like, oh, she wasn't like her not sex stage, right? You can deny what you want, whether you're religious or even biology, it's like, that's what they say, it's medical, right? But then the issue comes up, it's like, well, what if it's rape? It's like, she didn't consent to have this child, she didn't. So because she didn't want this, you're not pushing her to this position, right? And then it was to like, what would you do in a situation where, just like we said, it's like, okay, so she said, oh yeah, I want to have this child, and she consented to it, and because she thought, hey, like, you're gonna have, a life here, who's gonna provide for me, but then all of a sudden, away, and she says, well, I didn't consent to this. I didn't consent to have a baby under these circumstances, I wanted it to be under my circumstances, right? And so, it does go back to that, where it's like, how far does consent actually go, and if this is legally out, where will we end up in just, with where you just want to have this right, it's just, if I consent, I can think about, for example, even another one too, like with the issue of like consent would be like, think about the situation right now with fathers, right? Because like right now, as it stands, a woman can get an abortion by her choice, and the husband has no say over it. But if the woman decides to have the child, the husband at the very least is obligated to get child support. That's by law, right? This consent in the situation, well, I didn't consent to have the baby, doesn't matter, right? So why would we look at that situation that's perfectly okay as far as, he's consented, he has consented, we should force him to pay for it, but yet, if
So
the woman
can
doesn't
she enter the
consent,
life of
or
her
she
child
has
now
every
when
right
she's
to
not
the
financially
child,
ready?
right?
I'm from
And then, yeah, then you can also lead to all the discussions where it's like, there's options for the woman, it's like, okay, she doesn't feel like she can handle having this child, or whatever, or even raise this child, then there's like, well, there's options, there's adoption, there's foster care, and then of course they might bring it up, like, well, they're horrible situations, it's like, fine, fair enough, it's like, but should we fix those situations first, and rather than, just wait until it's that situation, but again, that's what yeah. But no, that was a very direct, that's what I'm trying to say, like that, you feel like a pro.
Is there any option
Yes. No, just about that.
to support the child inside the womb? Is that what you're saying?
It's more that the child inside the really takes more time for now it's
That's okay too, like I was into a little bit of information, like, research, like I can take a lot of the issues that I have sometimes is a good video across. Like sometimes it's very natural, but sometimes my struggle that I have is like, can I explain what I have in simple terms, right? So like there's sometimes like, I know a lot of the scientific facts about like, the way baby develops, the woman's body, or particularly in ways that shows that this baby is not part of a woman's body, so she can't just say like she wants it. But the way that I can sometimes explain that can sound like, okay, that just sounded very complicated. I didn't know what I was saying. It's like, okay, so I'm trying to work on it.
You have to wait a few months until one helps you with your
No,
child.
it was just practice, it really was.
And so within those months, is she able to kill her child because no one else is able to give her resources?
As a part of the fall.
So, any other situation, let's try that. Any situation.
And no one can help them in the house because maybe they're like far away from everyone else.
What is that baby
Alright, so, and so, just to make sure, so the issue of disability is that, is it that it'd be part of the mother, or that, the child doesn't have, okay, alright. So yeah, I can agree that, having a disability is definitely, difficulty with, raising kids. I actually know quite a few people that are actually disabled in our families that are very close with who have disabled, children, and, I can say that, that situation, they love their children as much, but like they'll admit to it, like, yeah, it's definitely a sacrifice, it's definitely a,
Okay, so
struggle.
what is it about that
That being
makes it
said,
harder to support a child before they're born?
would we say that, a child, like, let's say, for example, you have a person who, gets into, like, a person who's born healthy, and then all of a sudden gets into a car accident, and now they're,
a new person that is
acknowledged by the
Okay.
would we then say that now we
When
have
do
the
you
right to
think life
feel
begins
this
at
human
birth?
being because their quality of life is no longer the same?
Okay, how come?
But
Why not?
the child is
But that's usually what you're supposed to do, is to leave it, because what they say will then go. So why do you say
well,
that, right?
I mean,
So why would you say no?
breathing
What would
is
be the
one
reason
thing,
why
like,
we say no?
there are some people who are like, they have trouble breathing, so they are supported by machines to breathe because they can't breathe.
Because it's not like, and again, it goes back into,
So, but that doesn't
why
mean that they're not human, like the preborn human who does breathe on their own yet.
why are they still?
So if a person is born and they
Right,
have
so-
breathing, does that mean they're not human? Yeah, right, okay, maybe we should move on. Thank you, you did a really good job.
Yeah. Also, I try to be a little bit, I try to be a little bit emotional with the, it's like, yeah, the people who I know with disabilities, it's like, guarantee it's like, they say, happy life, you find a person, like, I know people with disabilities and whatnot, right? They're human beings, they still have life, and it's like, do I think they're not?
Okay, thanks guys. Anywhere we get stuck? No? Did anyone jump out of the box and say something really difficult as a pro-choicer? Good. No questions? So everything went smoothly as possible. Okay. What do you say, Ish?
She said, I don't think it's a human yet, like it's not human until it's born. So you kind of have to be like, okay, well why would you say it's not human until it's born? And then what happens like at birth, it changes that, and then it kind of got to like the dependency and the level of development. It was kind of like, you have to think outside the box. It's not just like this script that you follow, it's a conversation.
Yeah, when you're thinking of things like on the spot, it is like harder to think of something right away. But yeah, as you practice, you'll get the hang of pulling things out of nowhere. Yeah. Okay. So there's one other circumstance we haven't talked about, and that's medical complications. Now, sometimes people, well, most of the time people are going to use the marginal case to justify the majority, again, with this one, but it's still always good to be able to address it. There are, every situation with medical complications is different, and we could spend like 2 hours talking about all the different situations, but we don't have the time. So, and even sometimes like the people who are bringing it up don't even know which situation they're talking about. So I'm going to give you an analogy that you could use that is general for like any kind of medical complications. So say I am in a boat and there are 2 people drowning on either side. So I go out to swim to this person, get them on my back, and I swim back into the boat, and they're safe. And I go try to save the second person, and I'm swimming, and I get them on my back, but they slip off before I can make it back to the boat. They drown. I have failed. Have I killed them? No. But take the same situation, they're both drowning, I save the first person, I go out to the second person, and I know I'm not going to make it back with them to the boat. So instead of trying to save them, I push their head underwater, they drown, they die, I have failed. Did I kill them? Yes. So obviously there's a big moral difference in the actions that we do, even if we might not be able to save both people. So what I would ask someone then is, even if we can't save everyone, should we not do everything we can to save both? The thing with medical complications, Trent Horn also mentioned it in the video, is that there would be no dilemma if there weren't 2 lives at risk. It's not controversial to remove a tumor because it doesn't involve someone else's life. But it would be controversial to have an abortion or to end someone's life because it's someone else's life in danger. If we could expand on this topic, for the record, abortion is never medically necessary. We could look at the principle of double effect, that yeah, so it's obviously situation to situation, but basically if a woman needs chemotherapy and the chemotherapy might kill her child, well, she should get the chemotherapy, but she doesn't need to have an abortion before the chemotherapy, because one is directly targeting the child and one is an unfortunate result. Okay. Yes, so the kinds of people that we run into on campus when we're doing outreach can vary. They might be bringing up the marginal cases, they might be bringing up the circumstances, which is most of them, and some of them really don't know what they think. They'll come up to us and not really have a solid opinion on abortion. I was actually at a different club event for this other club, and some weirdo brought up abortion. I don't know who it was, but we were talking about it at the table, and then one of the guys turned to me and said, okay, give me your best argument. So I said, all right, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. It's going to feel like they're leading, because they are, but I'm going to get somewhere with them, so just bear with me. So I asked him, do you believe in human rights? He said yes. And who should get human rights? He said everyone. Yeah, I agree with you. All humans should have human rights. And if 2 humans reproduce, what species is their offspring? It's not going to be a cat. It's going to be a human. Although some people would rather have cats, but contrary. And since we know that abortion terminates the life of that human before they're born, does that not follow that abortion is a violation of that human's rights? And so he thought about it for a while, and we said, well, I can't disagree with that. Yeah, so this is called the human rights argument. This is the basis and the general pro-life position in a nutshell. It's perfect for people who don't know where they stand to introduce to them what the pro-life stance is. And yeah, it's also really good for people who say that they can't have an opinion because they're males. Because this shows that this is a human rights issue, not a woman rights issue, not a reproductive rights issue. So, we're almost done. We covered a lot today, and a lot of it is very conceptual. Something that also happens on campus with these conversations is that students really like to talk about concepts and hypotheticals and things like that. And people often forget what we're even talking about. And what we're talking about is the dismemberment, decapitation, and disembowelment of 300 tiny humans every day in our country alone. Yeah, so it's so important that we realize and we remember who we're fighting for. Because 300 abortions happen every day. It means they happened yesterday, they'll happen today, and what happens tomorrow is up to us. Because we can make a difference. And I've seen it happen on campus. I've seen people change their minds, and I've seen women cancel their, well, I've heard of them. I've heard of women canceling their abortion appointments because someone cared enough to tell them the truth. So my hope for you guys is that you care enough too. And obviously you do, because you came here today. So thank you so much for coming. That is the end of our workshop. And don't forget that the flag display is happening 7 days from today, and we are looking for shifts for people to take